Offensive linemen get absolutely no love in the NFL, or they get no love in football in general. They all just don't get any credit for whatever a win goes down, and not only that, nobody really knows their name, and everyone craps on them after a loss, no matter what. I don't care what team it is, there's always going to be fans for every single NFL team, every single college team, every single little league football, PB football, I don't care, every single, anyone that watches football, there's always going to be someone that's always going to crap on the offensive line. Whether it's a prejudice to fat people, I don't really care. It's just no one gives them any love. Now, when it comes to offensive linemen, in my video, What Makes a Super Bowl Team, if you're done watching this video or right after you're done, I actually made it. It's in the link in the description if you're interested in looking at it. I talk about offensive linemen, and offensive lineman was kind of the position where I thought it doesn't really matter if you really have it. It's not the bearer if you need it. Versus quarterbacks, yeah, you're going to need a good quarterback to win a Super Bowl, versus you're not really going to need a offensive lineman as much. Now, when it comes to O-linemen, usually the ones that make the NFL Top 100 are the ones that are like Tyrone Smith, very, very unpopular, very well known, Joe Thomas, but that's really about it. Those are the two left tackles I can name. You can always name like Travis Frederick, David DeCastro, I believe Zach Martin's up there, Marshall Yanda, but they really only talk about so many offensive linemen. And when I look at that, I just feel as if more offensive linemen should be on the NFL Top 100. Obviously, you know, Mike Iupati's a great player. We all know Alex Mack is a great player. We know about how good some of these players are, but they absolutely get no love. And I don't know, maybe it's the generation. They care. This generation loves the idea of the wide receiver. Maybe wide receivers just kind of take their glory. You know, I would say wide receivers are probably more important than offensive linemen. I always believe that. But when it comes to this offensive lineman, you literally get no love. And this is where Colin Cowherd, a guy who I don't always agree with, but I respect him in the sense that some of his opinions do make sense, and he does back them up pretty darn well. I think one example would be when he was talking about the NFL Top 100, about how NFL players would rather vote for a player with like pizzazz versus a player with actual winning credentials. Like, for instance, they were talking about Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, I've been very critical of Odell Beckham Jr. If you want to see the overrated videos, they'll be in the link in my description if you want to see them after you're done with these videos on Odell Beckham. Now, when I look at that, he was talking about people care more about Odell because he makes those amazing catches and all that. But some of Odell's biggest games, most of them end up in losses. That's a big concern. I think he had a big game against the Colts. It was a loss. The game where he has the famous catch that basically made him who he is, the Giants ended up losing that game. So some of Odell's biggest game they ended up losing versus a guy, Lane Johnson. If you don't know who that is, right tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. Good Madden player, by the way, if you want him. If you like a pass blocking right tackle, he's one of the best ones in the league, and I definitely think you should look into him. But once he went down, the Eagles started going on a massive losing streak, and Carson Wentz really liked having Lane Johnson, and they just didn't look the same after they lost Lane Johnson. If you look at the statistics of Carson Wentz, if you look at the Eagles' wins, they started going downhill. If you remember, they were 3-0 at the start of the season, but then they shriveled down to a 7-9, I want to say, and I look at that Carson Wentz, who went from being one of the most overhyped players beginning of the regular season. I almost made an overrated video on him, but then he started to go downhill ever since that Lane Johnson, and then everyone just stopped talking about Carson Wentz. And I look at that, that's a big point right there, and I think offensive line can matter to certain teams because ideally, some teams believe a little bit more in the offensive line. I think the Dallas Cowboys, for instance, always need a good offensive line. Ever since Jerry Jones is there, he's always put an emphasis on having a good protection and offensive line. That's just one of his big things right there and all of that. But I don't know how many times I'll say this, and I've seen this in the comment section, and I just want to bring this out right now. And some people, they are right about this. But when they always say about the offensive line, they always say that it's always the offensive lineman's fault. It's always the offensive lineman's fault for anything. I feel like when we look at the New England Patriots when they lost to the Giants twice in the Super Bowl, it's like, oh, it's the O-line's fault. It's the O-line's fault. It's just, I just think to myself, I'm like, Matt Light's pretty good. That's from what I remember. He made it to 3 Pro Bowls. He was a pretty good player when he started with him. Obviously, he might have struggled the Super Bowl, the offensive line just always gets freaking capped. I'm thinking to myself, maybe if Tom Brady didn't throw that pick late in the game, trying to throw it deep to Rob Gronkowski in the last Super Bowl they faced the New York Giants, or maybe, I don't know, Wes Welker catches that pass, maybe those are some things. Not really the offensive line there. And listen, look, you have to get pressure on Tom Brady, but I get it. But sometimes it's like, Wes Welker should have caught that ball. Brady should probably took a pick there. He probably should have ran after that fact. And I just look at that. That's just an example right there. And I remember on my Matt Ryan video, a lot of people talked about offensive line, that the offensive line wasn't good enough to play. And I'm just trying to think to myself in my head, how they kind of play football isn't really offensive line centric. And ideally, I just look at that. They just get so much freaking crap dumped on them. Like, the amount of crap it's done, it's just ridiculous. And then I was talking to this Vikings fan. I made a Vikings off-season video. I didn't really care about their offensive line's situation as much, but apparently Vikings fans were like, we have one of the worst offensive lines in the league, which is true. I think they had like the 32nd ranked offensive line in the league. And I look at that, I'm like, okay, yes, that's a problem, but just as your offense, is there anyone that can really score on your team? I think that's a little bit more valuable. This Stephon Diggs guy, who's supposed to be their great receiver, he barely eclipses 1,000 yards. And yes, I know he had a 20 reception game or something ridiculous like that, but he had 80 yards. 80 yards for a guy that's supposed to be the next Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown gets over 10 yards per catch, I want to say. And this guy got 4 yards per catch in one game. And this is against I believe, the Chicago Bears. That's not that impressive. It was ridiculous, but obviously when they have a lot of these like receptions, or like 15 receptions, it might not have been 20, but it might have been 15. If you look at that, I think to myself, you got to get more yards at the catch. And also the running back situation, Jerick McKinnon, he's okay. He's more of a scat back. He's nothing really too exciting. And then Matt Alciata is just like a short yardage back. Kyle Rudolph is more of a blocker. I've heard he made the Pro Bowl for blocking, but there's no one really exciting that's really going to make a play. And ideally, Sam Bradford's their quarterback, and I know Sam Bradford, he gets a lot of flack because obviously he's an injury-prone player, and a lot of people want to see their players play on the field, but the fact is, Sam Bradford doesn't really have anyone around him to throw to, so there's no excitement. There's no guys that can actually gain yardage, but they still always crap on the offensive line. It's always the offensive line's fault. And maybe ideally, if you had a better offensive line, that would help a little bit, but come on. You're going to need a receiver. You're going to need a receiving tight end. You're going to need a running back to actually run the ball. That's more important than offensive line. That's just how it works. There are some cases, but it's absolutely ridiculous about how offensive linemen are. I don't mind them being valued very high to people. I don't, but the fact is they don't care about their offensive line, and then they begin to crap on them, especially in the bad moments. And I'm just thinking to myself, you gotta be kidding me. Why are you doing this to your offensive linemen? And sometimes they actually do deserve the crap, but literally there's no love. It's just in the big moments of the game, they're thinking about what builds a Super Bowl team. They're like quarterback, pass rushers, cornerbacks, safeties, linebackers. I want a really good linebacker here. And then they get the offensive line. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. And then when it comes to our team and the game, it's just like they suck. The offensive linemen absolutely suck. It's terrible. We need offensive linemen. That was the issue there. And I'm just thinking to myself, sometimes they might be a hole on a team, but just stop crapping on them. At least give them some form of recognition. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then if you look at it at perspective, I remember in middle school, I asked my friend, what would you rather play? Because back then you'd play sometimes you'd play offense and defense, and if you ever play offensive line or defensive line. A lot of people would say, even at the professional level too, he says, even though offensive linemen get paid more money than most defensive linemen, which is kind of true unless if you're a big-time pass rusher, they usually just don't get any love. He says, I would rather be a defensive lineman because I get to pay less and I get more love. And plus, also, defensive line's a little bit more fun than offensive line. I don't think people have as fun blocking. For the most part, there's some people who find blocking, but it's just always crap on crap on crap on the O-line. And I have no problem with sometimes being judgmental to offensive linemen, but it almost feels as if that, and I'm not labeling this as Cowboys fans, but I feel like there's even Cowboys fans out there that don't even think their offensive line's good enough. They're like, well, look at the one that we had in the 90s. I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Just kind of give that. And I've heard this before, this offensive line crap and all that. And I'm just thinking to myself, listen, it's not always their fault, and most of the time, it goes to the fault of the person with the more responsibility, aka the quarterbacks, the receivers, the running backs, etc.